I'm Janice Stevenson, and this is Bethel Today, the program of the Bethel Democratic Town Committee. And this time we are continuing our conversation with First Selectman Matt Knickerbocker. And rather than picking up with some of the topics that we touched on or hope to get to from our previous conversation, Matt and I today are going to be talking about something that has come up in the past couple of weeks that's driving everyone in town a little crazy, and that is snow, the abundance of it, and how the heck do we get rid of it, and maybe why is it not exactly the way we'd want it to be. So Matt, welcome to Bethel Today.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
You look like you're holding up pretty well under the circumstances.
Well, you know, part of it's lack of sleep. You know, you just kind of say, hey, yeah,
just keep going. And
yeah, it's snowing again. What the heck?
And maybe it'll melt.
Well, it will melt. I'm just wondering if it's going to be before or after June 1st.
Exactly. I understand.
Yeah, it's been a trial, and actually, you know, we had this show scheduled to talk about some other big issues, but you know, we get a lot of phone calls into the office, hundreds of phone calls and emails in total over the past month, and I thought it would be a good idea to just move the conversation into the area of snow, just to give people an idea of what the town is doing and what our crews have had to deal with.
Right.
And this is, I have to stop and say, this is really cool. We've got green stuff instead of, you know, the snow has transitioned from nice, pretty white snow, lots of it, to the ugly black stuff.
Oh, it is really, it is impressive how awful it looks sometimes alongside of highways.
Yes.
And, yeah. Indeed.
Nothing worse than like a 6-foot-high mound of black stuff that looks like coal on the side of the road.
Actually, I work for somebody who's originally from Ottawa, Ontario, and he said that they have a snow removal. Basically, it's a snow dump. It's like a landfill, but it's for snow. And sometimes in July, it's still there, and it's just black.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we've got that this year, too, for the first time in many decades.
A snow dump?
Several. We've been, you know, we'll get into some of the specific questions, but the town crews in between snowstorms, and that's an important point, that we can only do this when it's not snowing. Right. They have been taking the bucket loader out, the front end loader, closing down streets, clearing intersections, putting the snow in dump trucks. So you'll notice a large mountain of snow developing at Parloa Park, and another one at McCower Park, and a really big one at the town transfer station. Because we're as often as they possibly can, they're moving snow from and you know, a lot of the intersections that are a little bit more dangerous because the sight lines are so poor. Right. Those are going to get top priority. The downtown area, all along up and down Greenwood Avenue, Main Street, Chestnut.
It also looked like maybe Whittlesey and Judd, because that was frightening.
Yes.
Except after dark, we could see the headlights coming up the street, but otherwise that was terrifying. And the other one that I haven't gone near since I think the first major snow is the corner of Plum Trees and Taylor Road.
Yes.
Coming off of Walnut Hill, that is or has been really a nightmare.
As we sit here tonight, and this is February 7th, and I know this will kind of go into we go into reruns. I don't think it's syndication, but it's reruns.
It's reruns. We do. We broadcast this one 4 times.
So as this week goes by, assuming we don't get more snow, you'll see more and more of those piles start to disappear at those major intersections.
Right.
Now the reason I want to kind of call that out, because we get phone calls. A month ago it was, hey, how come the snow plows leave great big mounds of snow in my driveway? And I think you read off a haiku before the tape started rolling, and we can't do it. It's really funny, but it's not appropriate for family.
It's not appropriate.
But yeah, we know that the plows leave some snow at the end of your driveway. Usually it's not a bad thing. It's a minor inconvenience. When you get 25 inches of snow at one time, it's a big inconvenience,
yes,
and we know that. But you know, the problem, unfortunately, is there is no way to avoid it, and we have had dozens and dozens and dozens of calls, and they say, well, can't the driver angle the plow differently? Can't they lift it up and put it down? Can't they turn it the other way? Which, it's simple physics, because the snow has to come off the blade.
And a lot of our residential streets, the issue is, so they angle it a different direction. Maybe your driveway gets spared, but the guy across the street's going to end up with it all in his driveway. So you can't win.
Well, or it just stays in the middle of the road. I mean, one way or another, it has to go to the side of the road. So, but I just want to reassure our residents, There's the drivers don't do it. You may think this, but no, they're not hiding around the corner waiting for you to get done with the driveway so they can.
You've gotten that email too?
Many. No, they really do try. And you may notice with a really big snowstorm, the big trucks, we have 11 big full-size trucks, and they have these monster plows on them. They'll usually work in pairs when possible with one of the smaller trucks. So the big truck will come through and blast the snow over to the side. And then the smaller truck, they're called lowboys, by the way, and they have a dump truck back. They're kind of multi-purpose vehicles.
Right.
And they have a smaller plow, and they will start pushing back. They'll push the snow around the cul-de-sacs, try to keep the intersections as wide as they can manage. I would dearly love it if we had enough men and equipment that we could go around and open up those driveways. But we have 90 miles of roads to plow when you include the private areas, not private, but the things like the school parking lots and some of those things. We have 6,500 households in Bethel. And I would really like residents to understand that the men driving the trucks are...
How many big trucks? Because I know that I've read this, but tell me...
11 big trucks.
And how many little ones?
6 small ones.
And that's it?
And that's it.
That's 90 miles of road.
90 miles of road.
And 25 inches of snow. First priority is to try to make sure those roads are viable for emergency vehicles as well, correct?
That's exactly right. You have to open up the roads so that emergency vehicles can get through. And to give you an example... just as a comparison, the last time Bethel had any kind of a snowstorm this big, a lot of people think of about 15 years ago, the winter of 95, 96, where we had 120 inches, but that was nothing. That was really not bad, because in that year the snow would come down and then we'd have a thaw.
Right.
We'd have snow, then we'd have a thaw. This year we've had snow, deep freeze, more snow, deep freeze, higher snow, deep freeze.
And then let's throw in some ice in the deep freeze.
Yeah, well, yeah, just to make it turn into concrete. But the last time that happened was the blizzard of 1978.
Wow.
It was that long ago. And just so you know how hard our guys work and how much things have changed, it took a week to open up every single road in town in 1978. Now, some folks had to wait till 3:30, 4 o'clock, maybe even close to 5 o'clock in the afternoon on January 12th, the day that big storm finally ended.
Right.
But by nightfall, every single road was open for emergency vehicles. Now, open as well as we wanted them, not quite. They took another 5 days of pushing to widen out those roads as much as possible.
Right.
But emergency vehicles could get by within 24 hours of that snow. And that's remarkable. I think I have to give our guys in the highway department a big thumbs up. That night they worked 25 straight hours. Oh. I probably shouldn't even say that because we'll probably get somebody from OSHA in here, asking questions.
Literally, like each guy,
yeah, each guy.
Wow.
And now they would come back to the garage. They would catch a nap when they could. They'd get something to eat. But I can't say enough about them. They take an enormous amount of pride in doing a good job. And they will even go out, they're competitive. They'll go out and they'll check each other's work. Then sometimes when they're off duty, they're like, when you get a little bit of a break and you go for 24 hours with no more snow, they'll go drive through some of our neighboring towns and say, how are we doing compared to them? They really, really care about what they do. So, again, no, they're not hiding around the corner waiting to put more snow at the end of your driveway. Nothing is further from the truth. And it does.
I've noticed on my street that sometimes I'll see the truck go by, and they go up one side and they come back the other side. Yeah. And then it may only be an hour or not even that they're doing it again. And it may be the big truck, and it may take in one day multiple. They're coming back and they're doing the multiple runs.
It always does. It always takes It always takes at least 3 to 6 passes to really, because you go down the middle of the road a little bit to the right, you turn around, you come back. Now you've got one lane. Then they do it again. Then they come back but usually they're doing this and it's still snowing.
And you knew all about this before you got this position, is that correct?
Not quite. Not quite. I mean, I knew some of this stuff, but what do you do with 2 feet of snow on top of the 14 inches you already had? No, let me talk a little bit about the January 11, 12 snowstorm.
Absolutely.
That was taking 10 to 12 passes because it was so cold that night that the snow was real fluffy. And one of the guys told me it was like plowing water. You go down the road and the snow blows away from the plow and then fills right back in behind the truck. So it was taking pass after pass after pass after pass to make it stay where they wanted.
Right, because
so
the other
it took
thing,
long,
but the other thing
time.
that was happening in that case is where it's really cold like that. In a lot of cases, we've had really intense northwest winds.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, why bother? I mean, I actually, with carving out our driveway on the first really bad one, I got out there, the wind was blowing, and we had 18 inches. It was the one in December. We had 18 inches of snow, and I did our driveway. No kidding, 4 hours later, the middle of our driveway, it was 18 inches, as if I hadn't been there at all.
Well, we had some calls during the January blizzard from folks who said, you know, I had to wait till 2:30 in the afternoon, and nobody was on my street at all. And that actually isn't true. And now, one of them was my street. You know, some of my neighbors said that. But when I went out, I actually went out when it took me till noon to get to the end of my driveway because my little, you know, bargain snowblower was not up to that task. But, you know, in the 4 hours it took to clear the end of my driveway so I could at least walk out there, I did notice that the snow was slightly lower on the road on my street, and I live in a cul-de-sac. And what had happened was the crews went out. It began snowing. They reported for work at midnight. You know, like on the night of the 11th, transitioning into the 12th, they did every single road at least one time between midnight and 4 a.m. But then what happened was,
it snowed.
Well, when they did that first pass, there was only about 6 or 7 inches of snow on the ground, and then it really came down. So you got 15, 18 inches right after that, and it was coming down at a rate of like 3 to 4 inches an hour for a while.
It was mind-blowing. I went to bed that night, and it was just barely beginning to snow, and I got up, and you could not really see out windows.
No, you couldn't. No, the windows, the snow was halfway up the windows. So, but anyway, you know, so now we're into the first week of February. So where are we now? So what has happened is I'm not getting calls in the office anymore about the snowplow left snow at the end of my driveway. That's over with. Now the calls are, how come my road is still so narrow? You know, and some of them are narrow. And I want to touch on that. It takes a certain type of a plow to be able to push the snow up at a certain height. The equipment that we have in southern Connecticut is really designed to kind of, you know, take those 5, 6 inches at a time, even a foot at a time, and push them to the side of the road, and then you get you get 3 or 4 feet, you know, and you can move that. You can move that with the equipment that we have. When you get 5, 6, 7 feet of snow, the plow literally cannot throw that snow up anymore. So what happens when they try to widen out the road is it goes up and it just slides exactly what my snowblower does. My little single stage Toro, it goes and then it goes right back.
Yes.
So there's no you're done. You can't move that anymore.
It's what happens when I'm trying to shovel the stupid stuff off my driveway in certain places because it's already so high. Exactly. Yeah.
So you know we're well aware that some of our roads are narrower than we would like them to be. They, for the most part, and I have to tell you, when I get these calls, I frequently will run out of the office. Everybody thinks I'm nuts because I'll throw on my coat and say, I want to go look at Nashville Road. I'm going to go look at that court that's over there. I'm going to go look at Maple. And I will drive it and I will take a look at it. But you'll notice not only the worst roads are the ones where from road level there's even a dirt embankment up there. So you're missing a foot already, or you've got a foot already to deal with. So then you've got 6 feet of snow on top of that. And our plows cannot throw it up anymore. Now, there is equipment that they use in upstate New York and Vermont, New Hampshire, and you'll see these things. They're gigantic trucks that have a 2-piece plow. One part is on the front of the truck, and then you've got this big wing that folds out. And it can go down the side of the road and cut off that big mound that blocks your vision and throw it even farther away. We don't have those. I don't know of any place in Connecticut that has them. And even if we did, the problem that you have is can you imagine just chopping off the whole row of mailboxes that are just a foot away from the edge of the...
Yes, I
can. You can't even see. Yeah. So you've got mailboxes, trees, telephone poles that are right there. Some of them are actually in the road. They're actually in the... They touch the asphalt on the side of the road. So the equipment that we have has done about as much as they can possibly do. What we're doing this week, as we tape this, is we have the bucket loaders out again because we've gotten a break. It's been a few days, no snow. So the guys haven't had to use the equipment to sand or mix, so they're taking the bucket loader out, and they're going to be cutting down some of those narrow roads and improving the intersections as much as they can.
Sure.
Every hour that they don't have to be plowing, they
can
do
be
that.
working on that. So talk to me about mailboxes. That's something else that has become an issue here around that.
I don't think has become as big an issue as it's going to be, because as soon as this stuff melts and you can see your mailbox again, there's going to be a lot of them.
Oh, I know ours is like at a 45-degree angle.
Right. The official town policy is that if your mailbox is actually struck by a plow, we will replace that mailbox with, and this is important, we'll replace it with a standard wooden post and a standard, $10 aluminum mailbox. If you have one of those really, really cool $500 mailboxes that looks like a British post box from 1890, we really advise that you take them down in the fall, because if they get hit, we're not liable for those. But having said that, we don't actually need to replace more than 2 or 3 mailboxes a year, because most of the damage is done by the weight of that snow.
Yeah.
Now here's another thing. I went plowing one day when Town Hall was closed, when we had one of those big snows.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up Bob Dibble, the highway supervisor, and I got in his truck and we went around town plowing roads. Now, to get the snow as high as they got it,
mm-hmm.
you have to get that truck up to close to 40 miles an hour, and then the snow really starts to. And so obviously, in many neighborhoods,
did the truck slide?
Oh yeah, in the big blizzard on January 11th, every single truck got stuck at least once, and one of them we actually had to dispatch the front end, the big bucket loader, to pull them out of the snowbank. Sometimes when it gets really bad, the guys have to turn around and come back to the garage and put tire chains on. But
so they don't do chains off the bat.
No, they don't. Okay. They don't do the chains unless they have to, because that does a lot of, it'll damage the roads.
Okay.
But so going down the road at 30 miles an hour, I'm watching this plume of slushy snow come off that blade, and I'm watching mailboxes just go, when it hits them.
Well, that's why it's not, it's not a bad idea. Of course, I'm not sure what the angle is, but where people put an obstruction, because it is the force of the snow coming off the blade. I think in a lot of cases it's an issue.
In 99% of the cases, it's just the weight of that heavy snow. In New England, you get sloppy mashed potato snow that's real heavy. Less so this year. We've had a lot of cold snow that's fluffier, so not that much damage from that. But when that stuff hits the mailbox, that's not, the town can't replace that. You do have to put up a barrier if you live in an area where
it happened, where that's a problem. Frankly, I think where I am, it's more an issue of somebody messing with them at Halloween than that's a whole other thing.
We can't help you with that.
No, I understand that. I'm just looking at some of the other questions that I know. How long does it take? You kind of touched on this, but let's talk about the usual storm, let's say, is like 6 to 8 inches or so.
Yeah.
So about how long would you say it takes to say, okay, it's cleaned up?
Well, what they'll do is they'll wait till there's a good coat of snow on the ground, so it's worth their time, so they maximize their effort. A minor snowfall, like less than 5 inches, they'll go out for 3 or 4 hours. They'll be pretty much done. They'll plow it. They'll do the standard couple of passes. They'll put down salt and sand. The big ones, like the ones we just had, that took about 18 hours. Again, with pass after pass.
And that's the first go-around. That's the first go-around. Never mind going back and doing the cleanup and opening up intersections.
Right. So after January 12th, the next 3-4 days we spent full shifts, actually more than full shifts, quite a bit of overtime, because when you get snow that bad, that deep, first you plow it, you get that done, but then you're going to have icy intersections every morning, and the kids have to get to school.
Right.
So they're going to be out there sanding and salting the intersection, so they're still going to be out at work at 4 o'clock every morning.
Right.
So they're putting in a lot of time. And I do have to say that after that big storm, Bethel, Danbury, and I think Ridgefield schools were open the next day on the 13th of January. Yeah. A lot of towns weren't. They weren't done with their roads. Our guys had ours open.
Well, I also have to say, the other thing I was noticing, and this isn't specifically roads, but this is about the weight of snow on buildings.
Oh, yeah.
reading the cancellations, because with kids in the school, obviously, I'm always looking at that, and getting the notifications from Dr. Chesley that our schools had been inspected and things were under control and we knew what was going on, and that inspections were recurring, and then seeing places like Shelton where even on Friday their kids were not in school yet because they hadn't dealt with those buildings. That we've really been, I think, really on top of it, leading the edge in a lot of ways.
Bob Germanaro, the building supervisor for the school district, has been on top of that. No pun intended, but he's been on top of that, of all of them in inspecting. In fact, and he's called in a contractor who specializes in that to make sure that our schools are safe. So we're in good shape there. So I want to talk about a couple other things. We've had some calls about fire hydrants.
Good idea.
And there was an article in the paper a few weeks ago about a situation that unfortunately we had a fire on one street and the nearest hydrant was completely encased in snow. It did not hamper the fire department because
we have those trucks.
Well, they had a pumper truck that they dispatched immediately anyway to put water on the fire while the other truck came, or not a pumper, a tanker. And then when the hose truck came, the fire chiefs have to know by memory where every single hydrant is, and they do. So they got the call on the radio. This one's blocked, no problem. As the truck came in, they dropped one fireman by the one that was like 1,000 yards down the road, hooked it up, drove the truck up. It took a matter of minutes for that to occur, so that was not a problem. But whose responsibility is it? It's really the responsibility of the volunteer firemen to make sure that those things are open.
Cleared.
But let's remember that they are volunteer firemen. They have full-time jobs. They have families. They are going around, digging those things out as fast as they can. And again, we've basically had one major storm a week for a month.
More than a month.
So if you I know it's an inconvenience for people, but if you're lucky enough to have a fire hydrant in your yard,
clear it.
Please clear it if you are physically able, and just remember that if that causes you some inconvenience, that you are probably enjoying lower insurance rates for your homeowner's insurance because there's a fire hydrant right in front of your house. That's one of the things they look at. Now, we did get a call from a couple of courts, a couple of cul-de-sacs, and cul-de-sacs are the toughest for the guys to clear because there is no side on every side to push the snow to. So they have to push it.
And they can't get the trucks up to 40 miles an hour on those cul-de-sacs, can they?
Not unless they want to just keep going right through. But so what happens is you get some big snow that's pushed up. Sometimes they can't help it. There's no choice but to cover up the hydrant. And we had one neighborhood where the neighbors got together and they dug out the hydrant 3 times, and then we had that rain and it went down to 5 degrees above zero. So you basically have a 5-foot wall of concrete, and they said, help, we can't do this. We don't have pickaxes, that we can't dig this out. If you've got that situation, please call and report the location. We are going around, the crew is going around with the backhoe as often as they can to break up those frozen things so that you can get at the fire hydrants. We know everybody has to pitch in. It's not the highway department's job to do that, but of course we're going to do that as much.
Oh, right. It's public safety. Sure.
Now, the same thing, it is going to get warm, and it is going to melt, and a lot of those storm drains are covered with ice.
Yes, they are.
And generally speaking, they tend to free up as it gets warm. Fortunately, physics is on our side with this, because you have a street. Imagine a street with big snow piled up, and the pavement is exposed to the sun. Well, the pavement is going to get warm. It'll actually melt a little space underneath that ice, and the water will run off. If it doesn't, call us, give us the location. We did last week when it rained.
Who do you want? I mean, you want them to call the main office, or do you want them to call Public Works?
Public Works. Okay. The Public Works staff will catalog. They put the address into the computer. We had a flood in an area where the storm drains were blocked. They weren't frozen, but they were just blocked with like a big shelf of snow, and we had to dispatch the backhoe and knock that down, and it drained in a minute. So,
Right.
We'll have to. The guys are going around trying to free those up where they know that where they suspect there's going to be problems. But if one of them gets away from us, let us know. We'll do our best to get out there right away.
That probably is going to be major. And actually, I keep hoping that we kind of have these sort of high 30 days, because it is. I can see the levels coming better, and it's like, okay, it can get cold again a little bit and we're not supposed to get snow on Thursday for a change.
No. We actually can't. We
cleared
canceled
right on out.
Yes, we canceled that storm. I don't know
how that happened, but I'm glad.
That's
right.
It. No, you're right. The best thing to happen is we get these gradual warm days up to 40. Let it melt gradually.
And then
the worst thing that can happen is when we get one of those early spring days where it shoots up to 55 or 60 and rains. And then
everybody's in trouble.
Well, then we'll kayak out and we'll open up the storm drains as fast as we can.
Right.
But we're trying to. We know that that's going to happen eventually, so we're trying to get everything opened up before that.
In advance, sure.
So we're ready for it.
Absolutely. I'm just looking if they're seeing anything else. So we talked about the fire hydrants. We talked about the storm drains. The corners are being dealt with this very week as we speak. That's great.
Yep.
Okay.
Now the other thing is, now just in case we do get another big snow.
And let's face it, this is February 7th that we're taping this, so it could happen.
I don't know about the rodent, the groundhog, but we do have a few more weeks to go, so we could still be in for 1 or 2 more big ones if the pattern continues. Please do not push the snow from your driveway back into the road.
Even right on 58, it looks like somebody did that, and it's suddenly there's this spot where 58 goes from being relatively normal.
Yes.
Sort of.
Well, let me tell you what happens. We've had maybe a couple.
We need to be very quick.
Okay, a couple of incidences where people said, well, that darn plow put it there, I'm going to put it back in the road. That can actually break the plow when it freezes. You don't want to do that. But if you use a private contractor, please ask them not to push it out, because what's happened, some of the pickup trucks can't push it anymore, so now you've got this great big mound of snow right smack in the middle of the road.
And there's nothing you can do.
When it freezes, you can break a $9,000 plow.
And that would be very bad.
And then we got one less truck on the road.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. This is Bethel Today. I am Janice Stevenson, and I want to thank our First Selectman, Matt Knickerbocker, for coming and talking with us about what's been going on with snow removal. And I also want to remind you that if you're interested in checking out what's happening with the Bethel Democrats, you can go to our website, which is betheltoday.com. We also have an email there if you want to get in touch with us and maybe check out other events that we've got going on. We do have a dinner coming up in March. And we're done. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.